good morning, good day, good evening, good night, wherever you dial in. Appreciate you dialing in for another one of our videos. We are looking at session 3, Remembering God's Works, as we go through the book of Joshua. Now, at this time, Joshua 3 records the crossing of the Jordan River. And the people had to consecrate themselves and get ready to go. So that's what they were doing, and they were packing up and getting ready to cross the Jordan. Okay, so this is where we are. The years and decades of waiting for them to enter and get their promised land is finally coming true. Now they're going to have to fight for it, but the Lord has been taking care of them throughout the wilderness and throughout all this time. He's leading them. So they have no reason to doubt the future, right? So as we saw last week, the spies that went in and checked out the land. They came back and said, "Hey, the land is ripe for the picking. Let's do it." So, so this is it. Now they're getting ready to get across the river and get things going. All right, first question. What are some prominent memorials you think of, and why are they significant? Well, in our culture, there's a lot of different memorials that we have. Most of them are significant in regards to war. World War I, II, Vietnam War, Korean War, because we have so many people. It's such a monumental tragedy. Plus, it shows how people have sacrificed their lives for this country. And even small towns have memorials to those who have fallen in battle, even Civil War in some of the older communities. And, those things have significance, and it kind of tells people, hey, these people lost their lives defending the country, defending their values, defending their beliefs at this time, right? So those memorials are there to help people remember the past, right? So that's what that's all about. And that's one reason, and you'll see when we get into what we're talking about, why this is significant here in just a second. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We're looking at dry ground, Joshua 3, 14, 17. When the people broke camp and crossed the Jordan, the priests carried the Ark of the Covenant ahead of the people. Now the Jordan overflows its banks throughout the harvest season, but as soon as the priests carrying the ark reached the Jordan, their feet touched the water at its edge, and the water flowing downstream stood still. Rising up in a mass that extended as far as Adam, a city next to Zarethan, the water flowing downstream into the Sea of Arabah, which is the Dead Sea, was completely cut off, and the people crossed opposite Jericho. The priests carrying the Ark of the Lord's Covenant stood firmly on dry ground in the middle of the Jordan, while all Israel crossed on dry land until the entire nation finished crossing the Jordan. Wow. Okay, so now obviously the Israelites can see, and like the text says, clearly states, this was during the, this crossing happened, the 10th day of the first month. The fact the entire nation crossed on dry ground, I mean, that's pretty significant. This was during harvest season. This was when, the flooding, when the river was at its peak. And it would have been like something like, well, God, why now? Why don't we wait until, maybe the winter time when the waters kind of subside? No, God was making a point. Even nature at its peak, he can control it, right? It was not an issue with God. So they crossed, and as soon as the priest touched the water just stopped, right? And look at what the text says, dry ground. No, it wasn't muddy. No, it wasn't ankle-deep water. None of that. It was dry ground. I would dare say that when they walked, there was a little bit of dust coming up. So that's God controlling the nature. He was moving heaven and earth for his people, for the promise and the covenant that he made to their ancestors. Wow. It's pretty significant to see this and read about this. Now, This generation didn't have any idea in regards to the Red Sea, or they've heard about it because of what was told in their history, but they didn't see the miracles that the last generation did. And the last generation, because of their unbelief, would not see the promised land. But in this case, they're going to have their own miracles. They're going to have their own witness to God's glory and God's mighty power and His strength. And here is your first sign of that going into the promised land, right? So now you have the priests who are carrying the ark. They're in the center of the riverbed. Why is that significant? Well, again, that representation of God. For the most, you can picture God just holding His hands up and parting that water. That's what's significant about this, right? God was in control. He was parting the water for His people to go across. So it's simple, real simple. All right. Question: why are barriers an important part of our spiritual journey? Okay. Well, let's look at it like this. If everything was easy, what kind of spiritual life would you have? What kind of relationship with God would you have? If everything was easy and you felt like you could do things and live life on your own terms. Unfortunately, life is not like that, is it? Life can sometimes be very hard, be difficult, and sometimes it's tragic, and sometimes it just feels completely unfair. But barriers, for the most part, help us rely on God. It tests our faith to the point that we have to seek God for His assistance. And He is the God of the impossible, so He can take care, He can heal, He can fix the broken, He can do a lot of things. I got many, many times in my life where God has come to me in a dark place or something I thought was impossible, and yet He took care of it. And that's an amazing thing that I can sit there and I can say happened in my life. And I hope you can say the same thing as well. Barriers are not something that should discourage us, but they should be something to say, okay, God can take care of that barrier when I can't, right? It's that simple. Trust God with that problem, cast your burdens to Him, and let Him take care of it. Don't let the barriers, be an obstacle to your faith, right? That's the most important thing. Barriers are going to happen. They're going to be there. And the Bible is replete with examples where God has broken barriers and Jesus has broken barriers. And it's just, you just got to look at those and say, wow, if He can do that for this person, He can do this for me as well. So, all right, moving on. We don't want to get too far into this, but it'll be a good question for us to discuss on Sunday morning. I'm looking forward to that question. All right, second part, Joshua 4:1-7. After the entire nation had finished crossing the Jordan, the Lord spoke to Joshua. Choose 12 men from the people, 1 man from each tribe, and command them. Take 12 stones from the place in the middle of the Jordan where the priests are standing. They're still standing there, okay? Carry them with you and set them down at the place where you spend the night. So Joshua summoned 12 men and selected from the Israelites 1 man from each tribe and said to them, go across to the ark of the Lord your God in the middle of the Jordan. Each of you lift a stone onto his shoulder, 1 for each of Israel's tribes, so that this will be a sign among you in the future when your children ask you, what do these stones mean to you? You should tell them the water of the Jordan was cut off in front of the ark of the Lord's covenant. When it crossed the Jordan, the Jordan's water was cut off. Therefore, these stones will always be a memorial for the Israelites. All right, so now, the Lord spoke to Joshua. Of course, he's the leader of Israel, and he's telling him, like, hey, just get you 12 guys, 12 strapling guys, young guys, who can go out there and pick up stones. His priests are still standing there in the riverbed. Okay, so the nation's all. I'm pretty sure Joshua's like, well, what's the holdup? Come on, guys. But God said, no, hold on, we're not done. They get these stones, and these are probably not small stones, but not huge boulders either. They're probably big enough that they had to carry them on their shoulders or something like that. Going across the riverbed, you ever seen a riverbed? There's all kinds of stones in the riverbed. So these men went out there and they sought, there in front of the priests in the ark, and they found these stones, okay, under under the eye of the watchful eye of the priest and also of Joshua. These men obeyed and they were obedient. They picked these rocks up and they took them with them. What's the significance of these? And look at what Joshua is saying. This is going to be a memorial, right? So when they camp at night and they have rest there in Gilgal, they're going to set up these stones. They're going to pile them up, and that's going to be a memorial to what God had done with the Jordan River. Okay. Now keep clear. Now understand, it's not going to be a place of worship. It's going to be a place of remembrance. That is very important. It's very significant because then it's for other nations to see those memorials, and it's also for grandchildren and ancestors when they come across this later on down the line. They come across and they see that, like, hey, Dad, what's that? Hey, Grandpa, what's that? Well, let me tell you, that's where the Lord crossed. He pushed back the rivers, and the nation walked across the dry riverbed. And they're probably looking out over the Jordan, and they're seeing this wide river, and they are just imagining what had taken place. So it's pretty profound. And I did a video on the stones of remembrance because Joshua's got like 5, 6, or 7 instances where they did this throughout his book. Again, they're there to show and to be witness to God's strength and his power, right? It points to the glory of God. It's where people can point to those stones and say, in this place, God took action. That's important. That's awesome. It really is. So looking at some of these notes here, stone serves as a sign for current generations and their descendants. We talked about that. The Lord intended these stones to elicit questions about spiritual matters. And we see that in Deuteronomy 6, 9, and then 20 to 25. Question: what are some milestones that could remind people of God's work in their lives? That's a good question. I want you to be prepared to talk about that one, all right? What kind of memorials are in your life that you go to, that you see, that reminds you of God's blessings upon you? Okay? Could be a picture. It could be a Bible. It could be I don't know, a sculpture. It could be a place in your garden. It could be somewhere, because some people on their property, they put crosses, and places to sit down as a memorial to God's greatness and his mercy in their lives, those kind of things. It doesn't have to be rocks that we can have as far as memorials. It could be a lot of things. It could be, if you're a cancer survivor, what kind of memorial is that you give the glory to God, showing at this point in my life, God gave me strength, he gave me healing, and those kind of things. There's plenty of examples in our lives, not just in stones, but there's plenty of things we can point to that at least elicit a memory where God took action in our lives. Think about that. And let's talk about that on Sunday, okay? All right, last part, wrap up here. Joshua 4, 8 through 9. The Israelites did just as Joshua had commanded them. The 12 men took stones from the middle of the Jordan, one for each of the Israelite tribes, just as the Lord had told Joshua. They carried them to the camp and set them down there. Joshua also set up 12 stones in the middle of the Jordan where the priests had carried the Ark of the Covenant were standing. The stones are still there to this day. Okay. Now, as far as we can see, God didn't tell Joshua to do that. Joshua took that upon himself, and that's what a good leader will do. So, and you can kind of Google this and the stones of remembrance, and there's archaeological evidence that these stones were found and that they're still in existence. You can search those out for yourself. But, but what we're looking at here is people did this without question. That's right. Obviously, at this time, there's no need for question because God just did a miraculous event by parting the Jordan River, right? So we have an example where he did that with the last generation for deliverance, and he's doing it for this generation for their salvation into the promised land. Wow. Again, both times show God in action. He took the initiative. He took control of the situation, and he took care of his people. Wow. Right? It's amazing when we sit there and look at this, that, God is in control, right? And if those people had any doubt before they crossed the river, they don't have it now, right? So, very important stuff. Last question: how can previous experience with God strengthen a person's faith? Oh, wow, that's an easy question, right? So, I can always look back if I got any problems, I'm down in the dumps, I'm discouraged, or whatever the case. All I got to do is look back at what God has done for me yesterday, last week, last month, last year. I can see where God has moved me, and hopefully you'll be able to see where God has been with you, and you have grown spiritually, and you can see where God has helped you in either subtle ways or mighty ways. And it's very, and I know that when I look back on some of the things, the tragedies of my life, I could see where God had helped me through that. And He didn't bring me all the way through that. He didn't give me deliverance across the Jordan just to let me die on the riverbanks. That's not the case. Okay. So I take great faith in that, and you should too. Take great comfort in that. Very important stuff. All right. So let's wrap up here with summarize. We can be sure that God never fails to provide perfectly for His people during the times of need. Yes, during the times of need, God will provide for our needs. Not our wants, but what we need. And as we saw with the young lady Rahab, uh, she got what she needed, but she also got much more. Not only was her family saved and survived, but she was integrated. I don't know about the rest of them, but integrated into the community of Israel, and she became a significant part. So she kind of converted. She didn't ask for that, but that did happen, and God bless that. Second part, we should establish memorials in our lives that consistently remind us of God's good work on our behalf. Yes, there's always something that you can. Now, a memorial is one thing, something that points to that you say, God is good, God is great, He has helped me in this situation. But don't let it be an idol. Don't let it be a piece of worship or something like that. And I think that, we just got to be careful of that, because we don't want idols, obviously, but we can have those things that remind us, and they're good. Some people have those things in their lives or at work or in their cars and that kind of stuff. Good conversation starters for people who don't know, right? Always is. So keep that in mind. That's a good thing to use as well. God expects believers to remember and testify to what He has done for them. Yes, God has saved me and brought me to Webb Baptist for a reason. Okay? Now, I'm not going to shut up about it. I think He brought me here to help out and be with this family, and I love them very much. I hope they love me. I think that they do. They pray for me. They love on my son. They're great. They're awesome. This church has been a great part of my life, and I'm so thankful that I'm here. And this church is memorial to my faith in that regard as well. I can tell people, Webb Baptist, those people are awesome. They have been great to me, and I appreciate every single one of them. Hopefully they can say the same thing about me. But still, those kind of things, memorials that you have in your life, think about that. You should be able to have a good number of those. You can look around your household, look around your property, look around just all kinds of things, right? And it's not necessarily materialistic things. It could be anything. We got memorials that we see every day as far as community. What's the rainbow for? The rainbow is God's covenant to us that He will never flood the earth again. That is a memorial to His promise to us, is it not? And true to His word, the earth has not been flooded since. So again, we have big memorials and we have small memorials, and you can find those in your life, and it's worth talking about. So come Sunday morning, if you're in our Sunday school class, our Connect group, let's talk about that. I'm really interested to know what kind of memorials you'd have in your life. Okay. Thank you for watching. As always, I appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. If you have any insight, any input, I welcome anything that you would say. If you got a prayer request, leave them down below. I'll be glad to pray for you as soon as I get to the comments. And please like and subscribe to the channel. That way, every time a video is posted, you'll be notified when that video is available. Now, we'd love to have you here at Webb Baptist. We meet on Wednesday nights for our Bible study, and we have a place here for all age groups. Sunday morning, we meet at 9:15 for our Sunday School Connect groups, and we go through and study these subjects. this subject, and then we go into our worship hour. And we'd love to have you here as our honored guest. If you can't make it to Webb Baptist, by all means, get plugged into a Bible-based church and see what God has in store for you. You'll be a blessing to them, and they will be a blessing to you. I promise you that will not fail. I can stand on God's word that will happen. You will be blessed finding your church and your church family. You'll be a blessing to them, and they will be a blessing to you. Okay? Until next time, take care. God bless.